وعجم الناس أجمعين. Alhamdulillah. First of all, just to talk a little bit about a verse in the Quran which I think is very significant in relation to the family. And it's everybody knows the verse because it's quoted almost every Jumu'ah. And it's a verse that Uthman ibn Mad'un radiallahu anhu said that when he first became Muslim, he actually became Muslim because he loved the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet used to always be explaining him Islam, and finally he became so ashamed every time he saw him that he became a Muslim simply to please the Prophet ﷺ. And he said that in the hadith, حَيَاءً مِنْ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم, and he said وَلَكِنْ الْإِيمَانِ لَمْ يَسْتَقِرْ فِي قَلْبِي حَتَّى نَزَلَتْ هَذِهِ الْآيَةِ. That Iman really didn't come into his heart until this ayah was revealed. And it's really, the profundity, the depth of the ayah is awesome. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُ بِالْعَدْلِ وَالْإِحْسَانِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands to adl, which is justice, and ihsan, which is making things beautiful. وَإِيتَاءِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى, and commanding to taking, to helping and giving to relatives. وَيَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ وَالْبَغْيِ يَعِظُكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibits al-fahsha, which is everything yustaqbah dhikruhu. Anything that people don't like to hear about, that is fahsha. Things that are really the unmentionables, unspeakables. وَالْمُنْكَرِ, everything rejected in a healthy society that's following Islam. Munkar is the opposite of ma'ruf. It's what people reject when their hearts are healthy. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ was commanded to wa'mir bil'urf, to command what people know, what's common knowledge. Which now in this day and age, it's opposite, like the Prophet ﷺ said, in the end of time, the ma'ruf becomes munkar, and the munkar becomes ma'ruf. This is what's happened, and this is the state of. And then finally, al-baghi, which is oppression. And baghi is an important word. It comes from, the root meaning is to desire. And so the nature of depression, the oppression of one person over another, usually results because they want something that that person or that country has. Right? This is really the essence of oppression, is taking what is not yours. وَضَعُ شَيْءٍ فِي غَيْرِ مَحَلِّهِ. And the essence of justice is giving everything its due. Giving everything its due. And then Allah says that He is telling us, He's exhorting us through this in order that we might remember. Now, just in relation to the family, if you look at these ayahs, the first thing about the family is that family has to be based on justice. There has to be justice. For instance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the male, generally stronger than the female physically. The male has generally, this is obviously, you get your bell curve out and it's gonna, you'll get your deviations from the mean, right? But normally you're dealing with strength that a female is less strong physically. And I'm talking about brute physical force, because women have other types of physical strengths that men don't have. For instance, a childbirth. If a man had to give birth to children, they say there wouldn't be any more people, right? So, because of that physical strength, there has to be adab. In other words, a ruler becomes unjust when he transgresses. And one of the things that a ruler has that you don't have is an army. The ruler has an army. And when the ruler uses the army to oppress people, he becomes a zalim. When he uses the army to protect people, he's just. So if a man uses his strength to protect his woman, then he's a just man. But if he uses that strength to oppress his woman, he's a zalim. And the biggest zalim is Fir'aun. He's the head of the zalimin. He's Imam Ahl al-Nar. The people of the fire, they have an Imam.
He's the qudwa that they all wanted to be like. Really, might makes right. This is the methodology of the tyrant. Might makes right. So in many houses, a man rules the roost, not through justice, but through the power of his arm. Might makes right. Shut up. Just do what I say and don't ask questions. Right? And I know that there's women that have heard these type of things, may be more abusive. Now, not to be totally unfair to the men, there's also women that do the same thing to the men. Because a woman can have a man who's very patient and doesn't react like that, and she'll abuse that type of hilm or that patience. And the Prophet warned about that. He warned about women who had kufran al-mu'ashara, that they were ungrateful for the good company of their husband and complained about him. And there's women that become discontent with their husband because he doesn't make enough money, or he doesn't have this, or he doesn't have... So these are the roots of troubles in the family. You know, and we can't always put it one-sided. It works both ways. But often you have this problem of an unjust husband. And Fir'aun had a wife, Asya, who was a righteous woman. And she asked Allah to save her from Fir'aun, from his oppression. SubhanAllah. And she asked you for a house to be built in Jannah. So there has to be justice in the house. Now, this doesn't simply relate to the wife. And I'll tell you, there's a hadith about a man who had two wives, and the Prophet ﷺ said that he'd come on Yawm al-Qiyamah and half of his body is paralyzed. And they asked him about that, and he said it was a man who did not show justice between his two wives. And there was one of the Sahaba who had two wives, and before he would give the melon, he would count the seeds in each piece to make sure they were exactly the same. It's not a joke. These people had taqwa, they knew what was coming. So justice, not simply to the wife, the children. The Prophet ﷺ once saw a man kiss his son, and the daughter was there, and he said, "Ma ansafta baynahuma." You haven't been just between the two. If you kiss the one, you have to kiss the other. This is teaching adl. You have to have justice. The Sharia demands justice. Now, not only does Allah command to justice, He commands to ihsan. In other words, not just being just, but going above and beyond the just, what the just calls for, and actually relinquishing your rights to give to the other one. And about this ayah, about when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that men have a degree, right? وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ وَالرِّجَالُ وَلِلرِّجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةٌ. The women have the same, their rights are the same as the men. It's equal. That's what the Quran says. The rights are the same as the men. And then it says, وَلِلرِّجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةٌ. Men have 1 degree over women. When Ibn Abbas, who was given the ta'wil of the Quran, the ability to understand the Quran, he's called Tarjuman al-Quran, the interpreter of the Quran, because of the dua that was answered by the Prophet when he said, Allahumma alimhu at-ta'wil وَفَقَّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. Teach him the interpretation of the Quran and give him understanding of this deen. Ibn Abbas said, the daraja that Allah, and this is in Tabari and Qurtubi, the tafsir, you can look it up. He said that the daraja that Allah has given of men over women is the daraja of tanazul an al-haq. That they relinquish their right to the woman. In other words, they give the woman everything that's due to her, but they don't expect everything that's due to them. It's an amazing interpretation. Think about that. And who is better example than the Messenger of Allah? Who is better, if you want to see a better example, who are you going to find in the Messenger of Allah? The wife of Uthman ibn Mad'un came to the family of the Prophet ﷺ, and they said that she looked miserable. كانت في أخلاق, like old clothes. Her face looked bad. They said, ما بيكي? The women of the Prophet, they said, what's wrong with you? And he said, أما النهار فصائم وأما الليل فقائم. What's wrong with me? My husband. As for the daytime, he fasts, and as for the nighttime, he's praying all night long. In other words, she wasn't getting her right. And here's a man, we wish the women wish they had men not giving them rights like that, right? Somebody so preoccupied with Allah. The Prophet ﷺ had Uthman ibn Mad'un brought to him, and he said, Ya Uthman, and he was upset with him. He said, Alastu bi uswatika, aren't I your example? And he said, Naam ya Rasulullah. And he said, Fabiya iqtabi, then follow me. In other words, the Prophet ﷺ did not do that, and he's not better than the Messenger of Allah. They said the next time they saw his wife, she was wearing nice clothes and she was in a good state. He took what the Messenger of Allah told him to do. So there has to be ihsan. There has to be ihsan inside the house. The man has to be a muhsina and the woman has to be a muhsina. And if there's no ihsan, with justice, you'll have a relationship that at least there's no oppression, but there's no love. Because love comes from ihsan. Ihsan is one of the things that it comes from love. When you love Allah, you want to be muhsin. And so a man who loves his wife, he wants to do ihsan to her, and vice versa, and also to the children. وَإِيتَاءِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى. Not only does there have to be justice and ihsan, but there has to be the extended family. In other words, Islam encourages us to strengthen the bonds, not simply of our immediate, what in this country they call the nuclear family, but beyond the nuclear family to the qurba. Why? There's two things about this. One is that the first thing in which we learn to be human is within our own immediate family. But that humanity has to move beyond the immediate family. In other words, the socialization has to take place and move beyond it to where we begin to learn to live with other people. And the first people that we have to learn to live with is ulil qurba, our only cousins, our uncles, our aunts. The Prophet ﷺ said that the uncle is the same as the father, the aunt is the same as the mother. They have the same huquq. You have to show them birr, righteousness, filial piety. These things have to be displayed. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَيَنْهَى عَنَ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibits fahsha. There cannot be, if you have an ummah that has adab, ihsan, and is treating the blood bonds, then that is amr bil ma'ruf. But then you have to have nahi an al-munkar. In other words, the society not only has to have all of the positive attributes, but it has to actively be engaged in removing negative qualities within the cultures and within the societies. And this is why Allah prohibits fahsha, munkar, and baghi. Allah reminds us that perhaps we might take exhortation. So I want to just quickly go over some basic things about the usra. The first thing to remember is usra itself comes from an Arabic word which means to bind together. And asir is a prisoner. And in a sense, each one of us is a prisoner of our family. The family itself is something that you can't get out of. And I'm talking about blood bonds initially. In terms of marriage, then Allah does permit divorce in circumstances in which a marriage can't work. And this is from the blessings of this deen, because the Christians prohibited divorce, and it became a big problem. They used to have rulers that needed the Pope to annul marriages because they wanted to get rid of a woman, or she wasn't providing heir to the throne. Right? This is the Anglican Church comes because King Henry, the Pope, wouldn't give him a dispensation because he was married to a Spanish woman who couldn't give him a child. And the Spanish woman's brother, who was the Prince of Spain, was very close to the Pope. And so the Pope was in this double bind. And this is the dunya, you see. So he wouldn't give him dispensation. Well, Henry VIII, one of his advisors, told him, so what? Make your own church. So he did. He said, that's a good idea. We'll call it the Anglican Church, Anglo-Saxons. And that's what it became. And that's why the Christians now in England they don't follow the Catholic tradition. That's why the Irish are still Catholics, because they said, forget it. First you converted us to Catholicism. Now you're going to say we can't be Catholics anymore? So they started fighting them. It's been going on since then. Allahu Akbar. Very simple solution. They all become Muslims. The king could have gotten a second wife, could have maintained the first wife, no war with Spain, and everything's fine. Right? Islam solves problems. That's what it does. And get rid of the Pope, right? Who needs the Pope? He's a problem, right? Seriously. I mean, don't get rid of him, right? That's what the Turkish man tried to do. You get in trouble if you think about it. Because people it's tape recorded and somebody cut this thing, right? This is what happened to Umar Abdurrahman. They took him, they asked him, Ya Sheikh, ma hukm al-Umam al-Mutahidah? Kharrabaha Allah. This is the way the Arab talk, right? They asked him, Sheikh, Umar, what do you say about the Umam al-Mutahidah? May Allah destroy it, And then they just, right? This is what they do. FBI, they take the tape, they take when you say Muslims, they cut, slice, and then it says, يجب على المسلمين أن يخرب الأمم المتحدة. And then this is the fatwa, right? Allahu Akbar. This, respectfullah. It's a poor man. He's completely framed, right? Subhanallah. Farajallahu anhu. It's unbelievable. And it's horrible. I shouldn't even be making light of it, because they could do it to anybody they want. This is their game they play with these things. So that's why you have to clarify, but they could still do it. Who cares, right? Allahu Akbar. At a certain point, you just tawakkal ala Allah, right, Allah? Huh? And we're in the kitchen. Subhanallah. They're saying he's a terrorist, right? I'm up here on a panel with a terrorist. Khalas. And this is what happens to the Muslims, right? It's true, I'm not making it up. Subhanallah. So where were we? The I get up on that too. Well, I really lost my train. Alright, the family. So this is what, right, the adab ben zawja. This is what, Islam really came to protect the family and to create an environment in which the worship of Allah is conducive. The environment is conducive to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Think about this, if you have a situation where there's strife within a family, there's fighting between the husband and the wife, this puts a feeling of ittirab. It's like people feel they're constantly in a state of turmoil. And Islam came to bring sakina, right? Really, it came to bring sakina to people. And if people are not living according to Islam, then the environment that takes place inside the household is disastrous, because it results in there being an unsettled situation. Children suffer, women suffer, and ultimately the husband suffers, everyone suffers. So the institution of the family is something that I think is grossly neglected. We're neglecting the rights and the responsibilities with an emphasis on the responsibilities. And just to talk then a little bit about where we should be going in terms of our own area here. The first thing to remember that the American society is a society that really in many ways is designed to destroy the family. Just to give you some examples. There's no neighborhoods in this country. There's none. They create these false communities that you can rent like an apartment where they create this false community setting. There's a community center. What community? There's no community. You live there 10 years, you never know your neighbor. You won't know his name. You won't know. I'm not making this up, because all of you have been in this situation. Haqq al-jar is from Islam, the right of the neighbor. People should at least know their neighbor's name. There should be communication between them. Now, part of this is the television, and the Muslims should just get rid of it. And I've said this so many times. I know that there's some people in this community that have done that, because they came to me, they told me, you know, since I got rid of the television, my life totally changed. I have time. I'm reading books. I spend more time with my family. There's people that have told me that, so I know there's people. But there's many people. You work. The man he goes to work at 7 in the morning. He come back at 7 at night. He sit down in front of the television. No conversation between the family. No. I mean, first of all, quality time. Now they're already debunking that. In fact, they say it's better just for the mother to be with the child all day long and ignore it than to have 10 minutes of quality time because she's working all day. Really, you can read their own research on it. Quality time, they're already debunking the myth of quality time. Children need attention. They need to hear from the parents. They need to get hugs. They need to be talked to. And if we're using the television to raise our children, then first of all, like the Jewish rabbi in London, when he was asked why his community didn't have televisions, and said, because we look at it like having an open sewer in your front room. Right? A Jewish rabbi said that. Muslims, I'm telling you, you can't watch TV now. No, already they have a program, and I read about this stuff. I don't watch that stuff. Alhamdulillah, I don't watch it. I read about this program in Newsweek, where they have this woman, Ellen DeGeneres, having a relationship with another woman, and then kissing on the television. I mean, first of all, heterosexual. We don't do that in Islam for the heterosexual. But this is actually promoting homosexual relationship on primetime television. You don't want your own, one of the ulama said, the inner eye of the heart is more sensitive than the outward eye. In other words, the basira to the human being is more sensitive than the eye. You get a tiny little hair in your eye, or a piece of sand in your eye, and think about that. Imam Shafi'i, when he used to memorize the entire law at one reading, and one day he went out, and a woman's, in one riwayah, her dress blew up, he saw her leg and maintained his glance at it, another the veil, and he looked at her face, and he looked at it without turning immediately away. He went back, he couldn't memorize the law. He read it 3, 4, 5 times. He went to Al-Waki' and he said, شَكَوْتُ إِلَى وَكِيعِ سُوءَ حِفْظِي فَأَرْشَدَنِي إِلَى تَرْكِ الْمَعَاصِي. Famous lines. I complained to my teacher Waki' about having a bad memory. And he told me, you have to leave disobedience to Allah, because knowledge of this deen is light, and the light of Allah does not enter the heart of a disobedient one. Now here's a man who actually felt a profound difference in his ability to acquire knowledge from looking at a woman one time. Right? Just one time. I mean, where now? People watching pornography, people, looking at all of this filth. It's unbelievable. Where are the hearts? And then you wonder why you hear, wow, you don't get affected by it. Wallahi, you hear the Quran, it doesn't move your heart. People don't cry. One of the scholars, he said, if you want to know whether your heart is alive or dead, then look whether your eye is moist or dry. If it's moist, then you should know that your heart is alive. If it's dry, then you should know your heart is dead. The Prophet ﷺ said, if you read Quran, weep. And if you can't weep, pretend to weep. Because tashabbuh bil kirami falah. Even to imitate the noble people is a type of success. Not in front of other people, but in private. Pretend to weep. If you can't weep, if you're watching all this filth, what does that do to the heart? You think it doesn't have an effect? Because of what they were earning, this is what destroyed their hearts. Really, these people were... They're killing, they just kill their young people. They're just shooting, killing people without it. Why are they doing that? You think human beings can do that? You think, the Bosnia, the Serbs, the number one pornographic country, right, in Europe was Yugoslavia. They were producing more smut in all of Eastern Europe, right? Even their main magazines have pornographic pictures of women. So why should you be surprised when these men go and rape 50,000 women? Why? Why get surprised at that? They're living off the degradation of women. They see it every single day. Why should they care? And this is what happens. So, television is destructive to families. I would advise everybody read there's several books you can read. You pick your choose. 4 Arguments for the Elimination of Television. Read The Plug-in Drug by Wynne. The Plug-in Drug. The Evil Eye. Right? These are all studies. They'll give you documented studies of the destructive effects that television has on families. Documented studies of the positive effects that happened for families when they got rid of the television. Right? But I guarantee you go home, you turn on the television. In other words, you don't want to bother the people in their graves. Now, we want a peaceful, silent place of reflection where we can actually think about our dead and we can make dua for them. They bring a tractor and they dump into a grave. You tell me where? You come from India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, right? Do we do this to our dead in Muslim countries? Morocco, do they do that? It's fast food. I mean, this is it. It's just quick, get it over with. Big tractor come in and dump in front. It's so horrific. And then a pounding machine. When our Prophet ﷺ said that they hear the sound of the sandal, pounding machine, blasting the soil into it. Why? So they don't have to come back 2 days later after the soil has gone compressed and have to fill in some more. Let's just all do it fast, get it over with quick. Why are we doing this to our dead? Why? They deserve better than that. It's a fard kifaya to bury our dead. We should have our own cemetery. We should have a network. If somebody dies, people know. The Prophet ﷺ said, you need 70 people for shafa'ah. It's the best thing. There should be 70 people at the funerals of our dead. We need their shafa'ah. That's why we go to bury the dead, to make intercession for them, to make dua for them. Allahumma ahsin ilayhim, Allahumma tajawaz an sayyiatihim, Allahumma rahamhum. This is community. But now, I'm saying this, there has to be one person in this room that says, I can't do everything, Omar, you can't. There has to be somebody who says, let's do something. Let's change the condition. One person, that's all it takes. It just takes one person in this room that says, I'm going to do something about this. And I'll tell you something, that one person will do it. And not only that, he'll get a reward for every single person that's buried properly, facing Mecca. We don't even have the people facing Mecca properly. They dig these graves. They don't know. They don't get a compass out. They don't look. Really. I mean, this is another area. We should have a room in here for ghusl. There should be people that we should have a committee, a group of people that are committed to burying, washing the dead, or at least helping the family, teaching them, because a lot of people don't even know. We should have tidra here. We should have the hunut, we should have the camphor, these things to prepare our dead. Right? We should have a car to take the body. Why should we get out and be renting things? No, you know how many people there are now Muslims in this area? There's people dying and we're getting older. And then there's people, we buried a young lady, she was not old. Right? Rahimahullah. Well, why is this what we have to do? To make a real community where there's some care and concern, not just for the living but for the dead as well. And it's a blessing to go and visit those people. Assalamu alaikum ya dar qawm al-mu'minin. Kuntu anhaakum an ziyarat al-qubur fazuruha. I used to tell you don't visit the grave. Now I tell you go visit them. It's a good thing to go to the graveyard of the Muslims and say Assalamu alaikum ya dar qawm al-mu'minin. Antum as-sabiqun wa nahnu al-lahiqun inshaAllah. To say salam to them, to remind your own self of where you're going to go. We're all going to be there. And I don't want to, and everybody in here hear this, I don't want a tractor. I'm asking you, Allah, if I die, I don't know. Wallahi, I do.
There's a cemetery in Uganda.
Yeah, I'd rather be buried, I don't want a tractor. I want my Muslim brothers to take their shovels and bury me like a human being, not like a dog. Really. I mean, that's one area. Now just the brother asked me just to distinguish because time's getting up. Yeah, just one thing about the discipline. The Sharia, before 7 you should not be beating, laying your hand on a child. Before 7. They have no taklif whatsoever. Sunnah Tamyiz is 7. At 7 they can begin to, and don't think, no, he understands me. I guarantee you, if you study neurophysiology, you'll know very clearly they don't. You can tell them 2 minutes later, it's forgotten completely. Before 7 there's no taklif. Allah gave them no taklif. Be nice to your children. At 7, traditionally, Muhammad bin Sahnun wrote a book on Tarbiyat al-Awlad, and in the book he mentioned about one of the fuqaha said that you shouldn't discipline children at all. And he said, this is obviously a faqih who never taught children the Quran. In other words, he was saying, you need some, after 7, you need some discipline with some children. Not all children, but some children. But it should not be a punishment. It should not be done out of anger, right? And in this country, you have to be very careful. But the Prophet never hit a child, not once. He never hit a woman, and he never hit a servant, not once. And he's وَلَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. So maybe some question, and then we'll stop and pray, inshallah.
Can we break maybe for 5 minutes?
Tafadhal. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's true. There's a Muslim cemetery in Livermore that I heard about, and we should be supporting that, And it's israf as well, from Sharia. It's paying money. You're not supposed to waste money in burying the dead, like big coffins and all. This is all from their culture. It's not our tradition. The dead, you're not even supposed to throw the perfume and things into the thing because it's considered israf, or have bukhor, like the scent behind the funeral out in the open air. No, I understand that. Yeah.
Right now, we should be able to buy a lot.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, there's the people that did that. They did it. Okay, about tapes. Yeah, about tapes, about television.
I buy this tape and watch it. I'm not saying it's haram. I'm just verifying.
People watching ABC, NBC, CBS, all these types of things, it's propaganda. You don't get news from there. Read Norman Solomon's Watching the TV News. They've proven that people who watch TV news don't know anything about what's going on. It's all propaganda. You're not learning anything. That's what I'm talking about. If people have television sets and they've already done the investment or whatever, and they have programs that are beneficial, that's another matter. I'm not really talking about that. But I would say about children, be very careful about children, especially before the age of 7. Giving them programs, even these quote-unquote Islamic programs, the more I think about it, the more it bothers me. And I'll tell you, because if you study the development of the brain, and also many of the things that are being shown, there's too much excitement, there's too much. Children need to learn in environments that are conducive to their own levels of mind. They're already too cranked up.
Right.
You don't need to crank them up anymore with, Sesame Street type of programs and things. Anything?
Any sister here?
No, you still, the haqq of your extended family, about extended family if they're not Muslim. The family who is not Muslim has the same huquq as the family that's Muslim. In fact, even in Sharia, your parents, if they're not Muslim, have identical rights to the Muslim parents except once they die. You don't make dua for them. But they have the exact same huquq of the birr al-walidain, ta'a, all of those things. They have the same. I mean, look, even in the Sharia, it's so just. A woman who's a non-Muslim woman, if she's married to a Muslim man and they have children, she has the habana if they get divorced. A non-Muslim woman, she has the right to raise her children. The husband doesn't take the children just because he says, no, she's a kafir. And, well, why didn't you say that when you married her, right? Now she's a kafir. Before she was habibati.
Inshallah, jazakallah khair.
Everything stays the same. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah mentioned once, he said that it's not a hadith, but there's truth in the saying, no one leaves a thing for the sake of Allah except Allah will replace it for something better. But what Ibn Qayyim radiallahu anhu said about that saying, he said, Allah will not give you something better immediately because He wants to test your sincerity. If you leave something for the sake of Allah, Allah will replace it with something better. If you leave the television for the sake of Allah, Allah will replace it for something better. He'll replace it for something better. Right? Because you're just introducing filth, and your family, you're depriving your family, your children, of time that they should be given from the fathers and the mothers. Right? Now, the other thing about the family is maintaining ties. I'll just tell you a few things about this community. We have people that get sick in this community, nobody knows. Nobody visits them. Nobody asks about them. We have people that die in this community. Nobody knows. Nobody asks about them. It's a fard kifaya. You're supposed to go and feed the family, the people of the house. You should go and take them food. Right? Wallahi, this is what community is about. And if we're not doing these things, then nothing. There's no community. It's a lie. It's pseudo-community. It's like these virtual. It's become virtual community. We live on the email. We send each other emails. Right? Virtual community. There's no gatherings. There's no majlis. There's no hilaq. This is life coming together, meeting. And not just all this monologic. I'm not saying, I'm not here giving a talk, but not just monologic, one person coming and, giving you some speech or something like human interaction. Literally going and visiting people and having human interaction and not wasting our time. We're Muslims, so the human interaction should be based on elevating our states. When we come together, we should be talking about things of substance, not just empty talk. Being people of substance, being people of depth. Just people getting together and studying a book together. Wallahi, reading a book together. Take the book. If you don't know Arabic, take the book of Sirah. 5 people, you have some friends. Get together and say, let's read this book and let's discuss the book. Right? That's all you have to do. Just make some effort. Even taking a group of ikhwah. We don't all have to be brothers. We can't. In a sense, we don't. I cannot have a personal relationship with every single person in the community. Allah Rahman cannot have a person. You cannot. We can't have. But you have to have a group of people that there's some suhbah there, there's some companionship, there's some love for it, that you take care of each other. And that extends out. And it primarily should be the extended family, but in this situation, many of us don't have extended family here. It should at least be a group of brothers that have something, even if it's a cultural. There's nothing wrong with a group of Egyptian, a group of... there's a binding there. It shouldn't be for asabiyah. In other words, just, you exclude other people. But there's nothing wrong with groups that share certain characteristics and qualities, language, ethnic background, cultural. These are things that join human beings. Allah ja'alakum shu'uran wa qaba'il li ta'arafu. He made us in tribes and nations, we come to know each other. Alright, so this is part of our reality, is that we're shu'ub and qaba'il. And then finally, just a couple of other things. We have to have projects that transcend simply our work that we're doing. If you're working in a computer company, that cannot be your life. Really. And it's better that you quit your job and go do something else where you can devote some time to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. I mean, Sidi Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi radiallahu anhu said, the best situation is a man, he can get his rizq in 1 or 2 days and he spend the rest of his time for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Muslims, they used to work, they worked from after the shuruq until about 2 o'clock. And then that was done, they were done with their dunya. And then they went and they did their other thing. Really? So you can't have just your dunya is your only project. You have to be financially dedicated and also spiritually and otherwise. There's things in this community. We have groups. Rahima is one of them. There's other ones. Just like Sister Habiba is mainly doing this. Basir, there's other people involved, and I can't name all of them. I don't know all their names, but there's other people involved. This was started to help some of the needy in this, and it's been helping. She has over 70 families that she's helping. And these are families that need help. These are Muslim families that need help. And people have to support it in the community, financially. They have to go and say, what can I do? I'm just giving one example. There are other examples in the community, but I'm using this one example. What can I do? Sister, is there anything you need? Is there some help? There has to be some support. People get burnt out.